There was once a shepherd boy who had no mother and no father, only the memory of them, which grew thinner every year like a coat worn too many winters. The village elders, not knowing what else to do with a child who belonged to no one, placed him in the house of a rich farmer, who was told to feed him and raise him as his own. The farmer did neither. He and his wife counted every crumb that left their table as a crumb stolen from themselves, and watched the boy eat the way other people watch a fire spread. He was given work instead of affection, and when the work wasn't enough to satisfy them, blows instead of food. His days had a shape at least. Wake before light, watch the hens, be scolded, be struck, sleep on straw, begin again. One morning he was set to mind a hen and her chicks. She led them along the edge of the yard, through a gap in the hedge, and a hawk, patient above the tree line, folded its wings and dropped. It had her before the boy's shout finished leaving his throat. "Thief! Thief!" he screamed, as if a word could undo a hawk. The farmer came running, saw the empty patch of grass, and beat the boy so badly he couldn't rise from his straw pallet for 2 days. When he could walk again, he was given the chicks alone to mind. Motherless now, same as him. And they scattered the moment his back was turned. Desperate not to fail a second time, he had an idea he was genuinely proud of. He tied the chicks together by the leg, so none could wander off alone. It worked for 2 exhausted days. Then hunger and sleeplessness caught up with him, and he dozed against the hedge, just long enough for the hawk to return, seize one chick, and lift the whole trembling, tethered row into the air together. The farmer came home to find his flock gone and beat the boy again. Harder this time, hard enough that he lay in bed for the better part of a week. "You're too foolish to mind animals," the farmer told him afterward, not unkindly, only tiredly, the way a man dismisses a tool that's broken rather than a child who's frightened. "You'll run errands instead." So it was that the boy was sent to town one day, with a basket of grapes and a sealed letter for the judge. The road was long, the sun was high, and he'd eaten nothing since the evening before. Somewhere along that road, hunger won an argument that hadn't really been a contest, and he ate 2 clusters of grapes, telling himself he'd explain it honestly if anyone asked. Someone did ask. The judge counted the bunches, found 2 missing, and the boy, who had never learned to lie, only to be afraid, told him plainly what he'd done. The judge, more curious than angry, wrote asking the farmer to send the same basket again. The boy set out a second time, hungrier than the first, and the same battle played out the same way. But this time, he'd learned something, or thought he had. Before touching the grapes, he took the letter from the basket, tucked it beneath a stone by the roadside, and sat on top of it. "There," he said, satisfied. "Now it can't see." When the judge again found grapes missing and asked how, the boy answered with total sincerity, "I don't understand how you knew. I put the letter under a stone so it couldn't watch me." The judge, who had seen cruelty and cunning enough in his courtroom to last a lifetime, found himself laughing. Not at the boy, but at the aching, uncomplicated honesty of him. He wrote to the farmer a second time, this time as a warning. Feed the boy properly, treat him decently, and teach him right from wrong, the way a person teaches a child, not the way one disciplines a dog. The farmer read the letter and felt only irritation. "I'll teach him plenty," he muttered. And the next morning he gave the boy a task designed less to be finished than to be failed. 2 full bundles of straw to be chopped into feed before he returned from market. "If it isn't done in 5 hours," he said, "you'll wish you'd never been born." Then he left with his wife and his hired hands for the fair, and didn't look back. The boy worked without stopping, sweat soaking through his shirt, his hands blistering around the chopping blade. He shrugged off his little coat to move faster and set it on the pile beside him without thinking. And somewhere in the blur of his own hurry and fear, the blade came down on cloth as well as straw, and by the time he noticed, his coat was chaff along with everything else. He sat very still for a long moment, staring at what he'd done. He knew, with the flat certainty children sometimes have about the worst thing imaginable, that this was the end of him. That no explanation would save him this time. That the beating waiting for him would be the one he didn't get up from. And something in him, worn down by months of hunger and fists, and no one's hand ever offered gently, simply gave out. He remembered the farmer's wife saying once that there was a pot of poison hidden under her bed. It was, in truth, only honey, kept there and called poison to scare off thieves. But the boy didn't know that. He crept beneath the bed, found the pot, and ate every spoonful, thinking he was choosing an ending gentler than the one coming for him. "They say death is bitter," he murmured, "but this is sweet. No wonder she wished for it so often." He sat and waited to die. Instead, he felt warmth spread through him, the simple nourishment of food he hadn't had in days. This wasn't poison, he thought, and remembered something else. A small bottle in the farmer's clothes chest, kept, he'd been told, for killing flies. That surely was the real poison. He found it and drank it down. It was not poison either. It was strong Hungarian wine, and the boy, who had never tasted anything like it, felt it climb warm and heavy into his skull until the room began to tilt. "This death is sweet too," he said softly. And then, as the wine thickened his thoughts and blurred the edges of the room, he grew frightened in a different way. Not of dying, but of dying alone, indoors, unnoticed. He wanted, in some dim and childish logic, a place already meant for it. He walked out into the cool night air, past the hedge, past the fields he'd failed to guard, all the way to the churchyard, and lowered himself into a grave that had been dug that morning and not yet filled. Somewhere nearby, at the village inn, a wedding was still going. Fiddles, laughter, the stamp of dancing feet drifting faint across the dark fields. The boy, half conscious, mistook the sound for something else entirely, something warmer and further away than a wedding, and let himself believe just before the end that he had arrived somewhere kind. The wine and the cold dew of the open grave did what neither hunger nor blows had quite managed. He did not wake again. When word reached the farmer of what had happened, something in him finally broke open. Not guilt exactly, but the terror of consequence, of what the judge and the village would say. He collapsed where he stood. His wife, who had been at the hearth with a pan of hot fat, rushed to help him, and in her haste, the flames caught the pan, and then the curtains, and then the whole house. And by morning, nothing was left of it but ash, and the smell of smoke that never quite left the ground where it had stood. The two of them lived out what remained of their lives poor, and watched, and quietly haunted. Not by the boy's ghost, which never came, but by the plainer, harder haunting of knowing exactly what they had done, and exactly why.